Great. So today we will go over something new. It's all linked. We'll come back to the servlets and all those things later, but just another dot in the story. Finally, all the dots will connect up. So today we will go over something known as framework. Framework, in particular, Spring Framework and Spring Boot. So first we have to understand what is a framework and what is a container. Container we have been discussing all these days. Like past 1 week, we have been discussing what is container. So container is something which is a group of libraries which uh, which provides the support for the application to run, or in particular which takes care of instantiating, creating instance of an class. So all those things and supplying the bean, stopping the connection when we terminate, and when a request comes in, passes to the class. So all these are handled by the container. So Tomcat is a container. Now framework. So what is a framework? So framework is something which has been already developed, but only a skeleton structure, not a complete product, but a skeleton structure with all the minimum needed features like logging, error handling. So all those low level programming features which are repetitive in any application. So if you take a web application, you will be developing the login page. You will have to develop a logger, all the methods. You have to develop the try catch. So handling the try catch, security features. So if you take an application, there are going to be some predefined set of features which are going to be repetitive in all the application. So tomorrow you develop one application, again the same feature will be there. So what these guys thought were, why should I develop again and again when the basic features are going to be same in all the web application? So to make the things better for the developer, they created a base structure or a skeleton using which we can develop our own application, the business logics. So we don't develop something from scratch. We use which is already built and which is tested. That is the first advantage, first point in the framework. So we can focus more on the logics which we have to do in our application. That is the high level business functionality, and not functioning on the low level areas like logging, exception handling,
Uh,
security.
Rajesh, that means we can say Java is a framework.
No, Java is uh, not a framework. It's a language,
Could you please
programming
give me any
language. Yeah, I'll go through that. I have a list of frameworks. I'll go
just
over
to
all the.
give some examples, right?
Yes, yes, yeah, yeah.
Clear.
I have in the upcoming slide. I'm showing all the frameworks which are available in the market.
Okay. Just you will
Now,
create some example or like outside example, like something you are going to do it, right?
no, I'm going to show in the slide only.
Okay.
I'll show all the frameworks which are available.
Okay.
Okay. So, but before going that, we'll see what is the advantage. So, advantage is it assists in establishing better programming practices and fitting use of design pattern. Design, I underline the word design pattern because design pattern is something again a vast ocean. It is like how it analogy of design pattern is again a predefined structure, predefined rules using which you have to construct your program. You cannot just like that create a classes and write your methods. You can do it, you have the freedom, but that will not be a proper one. There are few tested rules using which if you follow those rules and create a classes, the possibility of error will be minimum. That is what is called design pattern. We have like lots of design patterns. So the framework adopts the design pattern. So the developers of the framework would have already implemented the design pattern, which is the best for that framework and which gives the best result. And the code is more secure because the low level programming is already taken care. Duplicate codes can be avoided. In our case, if we see the system.out.println or log.debug, we will be writing in every method. If you use a framework, you need not write it. Framework will take care of inserting the log.debug wherever it is needed. And framework helps in consistent developing code with fewer bugs, and it makes it easier to work on sophisticated technologies. More than that, if you switch over between projects, you know that the architecture of the project very well, because it is going to, let's say I'm following Spring framework. Anyone knows that Spring framework means this is how the layers will be, this is how the program flow goes. So there won't be any learning curve. And one could create their software framework or contribute to open source framework. Hence, there is a continuous improvement. Yeah, using the framework, if we are going to extend the framework and write, we can write our own framework. And also, by having a framework, we can have a community where people can contribute to the framework. That is how Spring came in. And several code segments and functionalities are pre-built. As I said, most of the things will be pre-built and pre-tested. So all the bugs will have been identified in the framework, and it would be bug-free. Even if we have a bug, since it is a community, people will be raising the bugs, and the next version of the framework which they release will have addressed the bugs. And this makes the application most reliable. The testing and debugging of the code is easier, because again it comes to the same point, the low level programming are already done and tested. So even by the developers who do not own the code, the time they taken for develop an application is reduced. It's reduced significantly. I'll show one example, maybe today if time permits I'll show, and or else from tomorrow we'll start the hands on the same application which we built so far using servlet, correct? The same thing I'll show you how we can build using framework, and how it is going to make our life so easier. Within no time we'll have the application ready and running. Uh, Using servlets, we had to create a project. We had to, of course, creating project is common, but we have to create a servlet. We had to give them the web.xml, the mappings, and you have to pass the parameters. So all those things, most of the low level programming will be taken care by the framework. We can see how easily the program is built using the framework. That is the reason now none of the, I don't think any of the companies will be using servlets alone. But even if the framework, behind the framework, servlets are there. That is the reason you have to know the servlets. So don't think that servlet will not be using it, and don't ignore the servlets, because servlets are behind the screen. So you should know how it is working. But companies will not use servlets alone. They go for the framework because it is fast for them. The development time is fast. With these features, they go for the framework. Next is library. We came across a word as library, and today we came across the word as framework. There are usually lots of confusions with the people between library and framework. So framework is something which is a skeleton which is being built by the programmer, and using framework by itself cannot do anything. There is no business logic to it. We have to write our own business logic. But library, it is having a specific set of business logics combined together and bundled and given. The jar is a library. We used jakarta api.jar. That's a library. That is not a framework. That has a code in it, that has a business logic in it of creating a servlet, sending out the request. So that is a library. Log4j we used, that is a library that has business logics, but framework will not have a business logic. Framework is just like a skeleton. So this point you have to be clear. Library
That
versus,
means, Rajesh, I didn't get you,
yes.
like a skeleton means, do you have any example? We told container just like a fish container, something like that.
Okay, in real world scenario, library is something a fully functional, uh, let's say a lock. let's take the building as an example. Lock is a library which has a fully functional. A TV is a library, okay, but bricks are not library. Using bricks, you have to build a building and then you have to live into it. But TV, you need not. You can just get the TV, plug into, give a power source, and it will start playing. Correct? A radio, a mobile phone, everything's are by itself. It is having a functionality. You don't buy a mobile phone and you don't write a code into it. Correct? Everything is programmed inside. The logics are all already there. If you go to contacts, you should be able to create a contact, view a contact. If you go to YouTube,
That means by using framework, we can create library.
using framework, you uh, yes and no.
Okay.
Because framework is, you cannot bundle a framework. Library is something a much lower part, like much a smaller entity. Framework is like, okay, in this example, TV is a library. The building structure is a framework. But if you build a building and give it to someone, that becomes a library, correct? That way, if you correlate, then it is yes. But
Okay.
uh, I
Skeleton
mean,
means just it's like the way how we want to build.
correct, exactly. The way how you have to write a web application
Okay.
or how
Okay.
you have
Gotcha.
to write a program, but
Okay.
that will not have anything. That
Okay.
okay, you have to write it. But a library has everything in it. You cannot write anything into a library. It's done. It is fully finished. Framework is, they just give you a blueprint. This is how you have
Yeah.
to write. You have to
Gotcha.
build it. Okay. Now, what framework does? It creates a folder structure. It creates the skeleton codes. It runs the hello world, but it does not run. It does not have any logics in it. There will be no logics. You have to write the logic. You have to create the methods, and you have to run it. I'll show you when we go into the uh, hands-on session. You can see that using a framework without we writing anything, a default will be up and running. Okay. Now, moving ahead, the examples which you asked, web-related frameworks. These are the web application frameworks. Angular. You would have heard of Angular JS and recently Angular. So Angular is a framework which is based on TypeScript, and all the companies using or the applications using this Angular are Netflix, PayPal, Upwork, YouTube, Django. But all these are of different domains, different purpose, different business logics, but they use the framework. So what they do, the skeleton structure they take, on top of that they change the UI. YouTube user interface is different. PayPal is different. PayPal is for payment. YouTube is for video rendering. Netflix is also again
Rajesh,
video. Yeah.
these are the guys who are
Uses
using the
Angular framework.
Angular framework.
So
Okay.
which means they build their business logic on top of this framework. The framework provider Angular, which is from Google.
That means by using the framework,
Yes,
whatever the framework they need.
correct.
Top of that
They,
means, but okay.
when you go to Angular, which is from Google, you get a step to install the framework. They provide a step. Like every provider. I'll show you one second. So getting started, the modern web development platform. So get started. Hello world. Where is the get? What is Angular setup? I think okay, predefined, not an issue. Here it is. So they have given to install the Angular. You run this command.
Okay.
You have to
And this
open.
Angular is a third party product, right?
Yes, this is from Google.
Okay.
This is from super powered by Google. Okay, Google's framework. Google has many frameworks. Out of that, one of this is Angular. They have a Golang. They have the material. So they have lots of frameworks. This is for building UI, web application framework. So what they tell is you install this, you run this line, and your framework will be ready. So when I run this line, what happens is it downloads Angular. Where is Angular?
The skeleton structure what we need.
Yes. It is not here. It would be inside Node.js. Think so. Node modules. Library, not here. I'll find out and tell. Somewhere in our local, the entire skeletal structure would be downloaded.
That Node.js is from Java, Rajesh, or
Node.js
something.
is no something different. Node is a different. Not here. Okay, let me find it out.
It will be in program files.
It is not because it's
86.
not exe.
Okay.
No, Node.js is here, but not when we run the Angular. The Angular framework with download. This is Node's framework. This is Node, not this one.
Or in 86. Programs 86. It's a Microsoft project, right?
No, it is Google.
Google, sorry.
Not here. I'll check it out.
Okay.
So when I run this, the entire framework comes up. But
we have to do in a command prompt, right?
Yes, command prompt.
To
install, open a terminal and run the following. That's all. If you copy this and run it, but the prerequisite is Node.js. So to install Angular on your system, you need the following. You can download the latest version of Node.js from this link. Once the node is an exe, once the node is installed, then you run this command. Angular will be installed in your machine. So using this as a standalone, using this framework, you cannot do anything. You have to write logics on top of this. So they provide like thousands of files which are already built. So they provide as a framework. So web application, Angular is one of the top framework, which is based on TypeScript language. And PHP guys, they built a framework, Laravel. That's again another framework. So if you are going, it depends on the developer which technology they are going to use. If a PHP project is going to come, or if someone is going to start a PHP project, they'll install this Laravel framework. And the same like Angular, they have a command. If you install, all the files will be downloaded. Then you can write your own logic on top of that. That will have the application up and running. So if you see here, they tell that you install this, then you run this command, your application. This is the application which will be up and ready. You have to remove this page and write your own page.
Framework, just we can say it's dashboard before we didn't
this
create
is welcome page. Just it is providing you all the necessary components without any business logic. You have to, so this page will be ready. You can see this page. You have to remove this page and write your own page here. They provide one default page for the framework. Any questions you have? Still you have any questions, you can ask. So Laravel framework, the PHP framework for web artisans. So documentation. So when you install the Laravel framework, you get something like this, a basic page. You have to delete that and you have to write your own page. So every framework will have it. So why Laravel? So getting started. Since you are reading now Java, you will not use this framework, but PHP developers will use this framework.
Rajesh, we are going to tell about Spring Boot, right? That's the thing we came to know about framework, correct?
Correct.
And
Spring framework.
the Spring framework.
Yes. So when we started like what is framework? So these are the available frameworks in the market.
Okay. What's the particular use of this Spring framework? Spring Boot
To write Java
framework.
application.
Okay.
Same way like why Angular is used to build a web application,
Okay.
UI level, Laravel PHP based. Same way we have Spring using Java. This is using
Okay.
TypeScript. This is using PHP. We use Spring.
Okay.
It is not over. For data science related things, we have Apache Spark as a framework. Amazon, Cisco, all the use the Apache Spark. We have PyTorch as one framework. Comcast, Epsilon, they use this. And we have a TensorFlow used by Google. This is a machine learning framework. It's not over. We have for mobile development, Ionic is a framework, which is hot now. Ionic, Xamarin, this is from Microsoft, Flutter, React Native, NativeScript. So all these are, if you want to develop mobile application, you take one of these framework, install it, and start writing your mobile codes. If you want to use web application, if you want to use data science related application, take one of this. If you are going to use web application, take one of this. Here I have to add two more, like the what we are reading now, which is the Spring, and we have MVC, no, .NET Core. That's a framework. So the Spring is written in Java. The .NET Core, it is a framework for .NET MVC. It is written in .NET. So depending on what language you are choosing, you can choose the framework. I worked in all the frameworks because every project will not have same framework in all the projects. Not all the projects will be in Java. So we used to have projects in .NET also, and PHP is also we use. So we have to use, and also I worked in all the mobile frameworks. I didn't work in Xamarin, but other things I have worked. So depending on the project, the framework will change. So framework is a predefined set of rules and files which are provided by the developer. You have to install it, and your basic application will be ready and running. You have to delete the raw files and write your own business logics in it. So that is what framework is. The same way, when we write Spring framework, we write few set of you remember in day one I gave pom.xml, and we wrote a few sets of codes in the pom.xml to download log4j. Same way, we will give Spring in that pom.xml, and all the Spring related libraries will be downloaded. That is a framework. The Spring framework will be ready. Okay, with this we'll move ahead. Okay, so what is Spring framework? It was introduced in 2003, so nearly 18 years old now. It came to fix the issues or fix the drawbacks from the traditional servlet architecture. What were the drawbacks? We discussed in the first slide on productivity, the codes getting maintained, duplicate lines, boilerplate codes, so all those things. Low level programming should be handled by someone else. The developer should be writing only the business logics. So all these were the drawbacks which any developer was facing the time. So to solve that, frameworks came into the picture, and Java guys developed the framework for Java. The Spring framework comes with nearly 20 modules. Only few are listed here. So you want to access the database, they provide these many layers. JDBC, ORM, OXM, JMS is a messaging, and transaction is for database transaction. So for data related access, they provide these many layers or these many files. Modules, we call as modules. And for web related, they provide the web The servlet is what we studied, and portlet, they have struts integration, because this came up when struts was in peak. After the servlet which we studied like past few days, struts came into picture. Struts 1 came, struts 2 came, then Spring came. So it had to provide an integration with the struts. After these modules, the Spring has AOP, aspects, instrumentation. These are all different modules for its own purpose. And Spring Core container has these modules, and they have a test module. So Spring framework, if you take as a whole, has these many modules. You need not use all the modules. You can use the modules whichever you want to use in your application, depending on the application complexity. Let's say you don't have a database layer itself in your application. You can just ignore this green box. You can ignore the web. You can just write with simple orange box alone. It is allowed, because framework is just a template. It does not force you to use all the modules. Okay, any questions?
That's clear, Rajesh.
Now moving, these are the two terms you have to understand when you talk about Spring framework: DI and IOC. DI is dependency injection, IOA is inversion of control. Both are referring to same terminology, same definition, but they have as two different names, DI and IOC. What happens is, when you attend an interview, after you finish an interview, the technical person or who the interviewer says you that we'll give you a call back. So what happens? You cannot contact them. Even if you contact them, they'll tell that please wait, we'll give you a call back. So what they are telling, you don't contact us. If you are eligible, we'll give you a call. That is all you have to know when you think about DI or IOC. It is dependency injection or inversion of control, which means the dependency is getting injected dynamically during runtime by the Beam factory or the container. So before at this point, I want to tell something. We read about two terminology: framework and a container. Spring is both framework and a container. But if you take this framework, Angular, it is just a framework. Angular is not a container. It cannot act as a fish tank for the fish to survive. Laravel, it is not a container. It is a framework. It cannot act as a fish tank for the PHP files to survive. But Spring, it can act as a container, which means it need not need any external server for the files to run. Angular needs an external server, Apache server. Laravel needs an Apache server or LAMP or WAMP server. Again, .NET Code needs an IIS server, but Spring does not need any server to run. It is a container. So one basic question always which is asked is whether Spring is a framework or a container. Spring is both framework and a container. Spring provides the set of rules on how you have to develop an application, and also Spring provides the fish tank or the container set of libraries for the application to run on its own. It is not dependent on any third party. That is the beauty of Spring.
So Rajesh, when you say Spring is a container, how are we describing it's a container? But I mean, like,
Okay, what is a container?
It's like a service that we can run on to outload the environment.
Yes. So what is the container you are aware of so far?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
Can you name one container?
Tomcat.
Tomcat.
Kubernetes. Yeah.
Okay. So if you say that Tomcat is a container, correct?
Yes.
Spring comes with Tomcat. So it is a container.
Okay, so
Spring,
it's Spring
Spring
by
Boot,
default uses.
Spring Boot ships with a Tomcat. You need not install a Tomcat. When you run a
Okay.
Spring Boot application, Tomcat
Mhm.
jars, everything will be shipping inside. The Spring comes with the Tomcat.
Okay, got it. So
So it is
by
a container.
embedding it, we are calling it as a container
Correct.
because it's embeds
Because it has the
Tomcat.
container features, we are calling it as a container.
Okay, got it.
Okay.
Thanks, Rajesh.
Oh, no problem. So DI and IOC, which is dependency injection and inversion of control. So I gave the example of interview. Always remember the interview example. If you code, whenever you code in Spring, you have to remember the interview example. The interviewer only will call the selected candidates. Candidates cannot call the interviewer, which means day one I said something. Day one I said that class class object equal to new class. I asked you to remember this line always, and after like 2 days I changed this line to interface class object equal to new implementation class. Right? Do you remember this? Like in first 2 3 videos we spoke about this. First class I said don't forget this statement. This is how you create an object. Like 2 class later I said I am changing this line like this with I am removing the class and making it as interface. Now I'm changing again this line with Spring coming into picture. This means I am seeing whether someone is waiting in the room. Okay. So what this means, this is a tight coupling. Spring says you cannot create an object of a class during the compile time or when you write the code. You don't create an object of the class. I will take care of it, which means you don't call me. I will call you when you need, when it is needed, I will call you. The example of the interviewer. So this line now changes to, after Spring came into the world, this line changes to interface class object. That's all. This guy will not know whether it is new class A or new class B or new class C when you write the code. These 3 lines you always have to remember only these 3 lines are there in Java, and you have to know when to use what and what is the meaning of these three. That's all. Now with Spring in coming into picture, we only declare the interface. We don't give any new keyword. Always remember, if you write a new keyword inside a class, you are violating Spring's policy. The code will work excellent. The code output will be perfect, but you violate the Spring's policy. Spring says, don't talk with a class, talk with an interface. Don't create an object inside the class. That is you have to always remember this. Don't create, never create this keyword like this. This is the responsibility of the interviewer. You don't give the mapping here. That will be taken care. When we go through an example, we'll see how where it is taken care. So dependency injection or inversion of control is the control is being the control is being injected inversely. Inversion of control. The control is given inversely by the bean factory rather than giving it here. So we are not giving here the control is the dependency. What is the dependency? Equal to new IMPL class. That is the dependency. This dependency is not given directly. It is given inversely somewhere else by the bean or bean factory or the Spring container or the Spring framework. That is what DI and IOC is. And that is the beauty of Spring. If you know, when you start writing programs in Spring using this, you will come across The most beautiful thing you would have done with the Java programming is using Spring. The next, coming to Spring Boot. Spring, we saw a framework and a container, the advantage, all these things. Spring Boot is nothing major, a small part of it. The entire Spring framework, when it is getting bundled with the Tomcat, it becomes a Spring Boot. This uses in creating standalone applications, embedding Tomcat, Jetty is another server, and Undertow directly. No need to deploy the vars. We'll see what is var later. Provide opinionated started dependency to simplify your build configuration. These are all high technical. Just for now, understand that it is to simplify your configuration. That's all. This term alone is enough. Automatically configure this third party. This is important. Automatically configure the third party library whenever possible. Production ready features. The health check, metrics of a server, everything are inbuilt. And no code generation, no XML configuration. This is why we use Spring Boot. So far, any questions? It has been a full theory today, 40 minutes. I think first time. But whenever I go with the Spring, this is the only area I cover because DI and IOC are theory. You have to know it before you start using in the application. Any questions? Not necessary that you have to understand everything word by word, but at least like a higher picture of what is the framework, what is the dependency injection, so all those things. When we write hands-on program, you will understand. You will be able to link it better. Can I move on?
Yeah, Rajesh, you can.
Oh, okay, great. So for a moment, I thought I got disconnected. I was checking my mics. Great. So let's go into the program now. I'll get rid of all these things we don't need. Okay, by the time it closes, there is a documentation for Spring also. So docs.spring.io. By the way, the site is spring.io. That's a default. That's a home site for Spring. You'll get to know everything about Spring. Why Spring? Sample projects. The beautiful thing about Spring is they provide a initializer, which means you can create your project, the core project here itself. I'll show Spring initializer, right? Last in the project Spring initializer, if you go there, they will ask you what is the language you are going to use. Java, Maven, the latest Spring Boot. They'll ask the detail about the project and they'll ask the dependencies. Now I'll go Spring Web. When I give this and generate, the dummy source code will come up. I'll show you one sample. They have lots of modules, right? What we saw that nearly 20 plus modules. They have so many things. Depending on what you want to use, you can just add those. For now, I'll add this alone, Spring Web alone, and okay. I've used Eureka client for web services. Okay, with just alone, if you give generate, the demo source code is ready. I have already downloaded it and imported it here. So this is the demo source code, Spring Boot Starter. You see, I didn't write any of these Just one file I wrote. Other than that, it's there. So the
Rajesh,
steps,
how we got that Spring Boot starter?
this one,
Just just you imported from the
yes,
C drive.
yes, I'll show you that. I'll go to the Spring, not here. I'll go here. I'll copy this file. I'll go back projects. I'll paste here. I'll extract here. Extract to demo one. Demo project. I'll rename this to Spring Boot 1. Spring Boot. Here, this is what they gave. When I gave the uh, through initializer, I got a POM, I got an SRC, inside that a test folder.
Rajesh, you extracted that Spring, right? Spring Boot, and that in
Yes,
then that Spring Boot we have
all these folders.
folders. Okay.
We have the demo file also. See, this is what the framework I said, right? They build everything. I'll open. I have to drag. I have to import into Eclipse. I have to copy this folder. I have to go here, new Java project. Maybe something is taking up space. I have to close. Let me get. I'll close this, and all. I'll close it. It is taking time. I'll get some memory. Okay, I'll go Spring Boot 1. Now, instead of using default location, I'll give the location which I have and then finish.
Rajesh, could you please go to the location to the demo? Okay, it's going to take this. I'm good.
So I'll go finish. Here, model creation, don't create. This is not needed. And the project is ready. So if we see, we have the SRC main Java file here, test a file here, and SRC main everything is empty. So there is one dummy file with nothing in it. Something is taking memory today. Why it is slow? Eclipse is taking. Okay, I'll check this. So we have this dummy file which has a main method, public static void main, which is like a main program, correct? And there is one application, online Spring application dot run. This is how the Spring framework gets started. These are all pre-built. They have given this. They're getting compilation error because I have to convert it into Maven project. I'll not do it now, but I'll show how, because it is going to again download the dependencies. You go here in first class video, it will be there. You can refer that video I've given in detail. You go to configure, convert to Maven project. That's it. If you give this, here you do not see a folder as Maven dependencies. Here you have it, here you don't have it. Once you click that line, this folder will start coming up and you'll get all the jars. You see here Spring Boot jar, everything got downloaded from the web. And to answer the question, Tomcat is here. See, Tomcat is embedded. That is why we call this as a container. We got all the required jars. How this jar is coming? It is there from the pom.xml. Again, in detail of pom.xml is in the first video.
That means, Rajesh, in Spring Boot, we have container and the framework. That's what I think.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So detail about pom.xml, how do we create it, how these folders are getting generated, everything is, there's a separate session recorded on, I think, day 1 or day 2. I think day 1 video. So with this pom.xml, this folder got generated, Maven dependencies. Now I have this ready. All I have to do is, I didn't write any extra source. I didn't write anything here. This file as it is, I just have to right click, run as Java application. That's all. Now, earlier in core Java, when we used to run this used to run as a Java main program. Here also it will run as a main program, but Tomcat will be starting. That is the beauty. Because Spring Boot is core Java plus Tomcat. Tomcat is embedded. We are not starting the Tomcat, but when we run the main application, the embedded Tomcat will start. See here, starting context. Starting servlet engine. You see here, servlet is the backbone, and Apache Tomcat version 9. These are few points you have to remember when something is getting started. So this will give you clues and how to debug. And what is the port? 8080. So see here, Tomcat started. So with just one line, if this line was not there, it is just a main program, correct? It is just a core Java program. Public static void main. This line and this line at Spring Boot application. There is something here. If we don't give these two lines, it is just a main program. Do you agree?
Yes, Rajesh. And one more thing, Rajesh, this Spring application.run, where it is going to get the files, other to get some data.
This would
10th
start.
line. Yeah, that's the line.
This would go into the library. If we click on this, it goes into Spring application.class, which is inside org Spring Framework boot. Boot.spring application. So it goes inside the default container where it is Maven dependency spring.boot.jar. It goes inside this. It calls this run. From here, actually this is starting the Tomcat. Internally, these jars, Spring Boot jars, they will be having the dependency. So again, it is calling a run method. The run method goes here. It calls new Spring application. Where is Spring? It goes here, and it passes the primary. So it's this is calling the Tomcat. See here, create a new instance. The application context will load. Primary sources. See the documentation only. So internally these gets chained and it starts the Tomcat, and it makes the project ready and Tomcat ready to listen.
Rajesh, is the run method is something similar to the multi-threading.run?
No, that is different. Here we are calling inside this class.
Okay.
This is an like method which is defined in the class. Even thread.run also, actually thread.run, we will be implementing the interface and we'll be starting the thread, right?
Exactly.
Only then,
To
yeah,
t.start,
that is,
then it would run the
so
method.
Correct. This is a method inside this application.
Okay.
Inside this class. Sorry, inside this class. So this one line will start the Tomcat, and it will start all the Java classes. It will get ready all the Java classes. It will load all the Java classes and make the application ready. Now we will be, I'll open up the program which we did earlier, servlet demo. We had src main Java. We are having src main Java. So no change, no change. We have an src folder, main folder, web app folder. We created, no, automatically it created webinf, correct? And lib, meta-inf, all these was automatically created. Here also, if you see web, main, web, src main. Here it is src main, web app, webinf, and I created one folder as JSP, because here JSP is the custom file which we want. So this alone we will be creating. Here also we created the file. We don't have lib here. In the earlier case we had the lib, we had the webinf. Here we have the webinf, we don't have the lib, because this will be taken care internally by the Spring Boot. This is one elimination, correct? Why we go for Spring Boot? There's no work for us. There's no need to put this jar inside here, correct? We eliminated.
Okay.
There is no, so this is one coding, right? You need not know. If I had taught you Spring Boot directly, you wouldn't have known this step.
That means in Spring, by default, it is going to take the
Yes, this is already correct.
inbuilt.
This is internal, correct. And if you notice one more thing, one more I wanted to tell. Yeah, web.xml we created.
Yes.
Here there's no web.xml itself, because it is handled internally.
Then how we are going to call particular methods?
Yes, I'll show that. So till here it is clear, right? I start this and the server is up. Now I want to call a URL. In our earlier cases, what was the URL? Something like calculate we gave, right? Calculate. What was it? In web.xml we gave. Okay, what was the two URL? Not this one. It is April 26, right? I'll close this project. We had two URLs. One is calculate and other is welcome, I hope.
Yeah, it's welcome.
So welcome, not here again.